Okay, there we go. Okay, welcome everybody to the Full Stack Developer Bootcamp, Part 1. This event's going to be an introduction to the fundamentals of full stack web development and a deep dive into front-end web development. A little bit about me. I'm a full stack developer at IBM. I'm also a senior CS student at UH. I started my web development journey about 2 years ago. Back then, I didn't know the first thing when it came to web programming. Seriously, started from complete scratch. And it took me very short period of time before I was working proficiency with it, and I was able to get a couple internships with my skills that I had picked up by myself. Web development is a super easy field to break into. That's something that you guys are going to find, and it's a lot of fun to kind of just play around. You get to see what you're doing. You know, you hit reload and you get to see the changes that you plug in. So it's very interactive. It's very easy to pick up. And at work, I mainly work with Angular and React. So about the purpose of this workshop series, this is going to be a two-part series where we take you through the fundamentals of FSD and get you hands-on with technology throughout the stack. Today, we're going to focus on front end and make a very basic website. In the next part, we're going to learn about JavaScript and backend development, and then we're going to enrich the website we make today with that backend. Like we're going to enrich it with the backend. Cool. So look at our agenda. We're going to start with an introduction to full stack development concepts. This is going to be mostly theoretical. We're not going to get too deep. It's in the next workshop series, we're going to get even deeper into FSD, but this is mainly just to kind of give you guys a palate taste. Then we're going to drop into HTML, which is the building blocks of the web. We're going to learn about HTML concepts. It's very basic. And then we're going to hop into a demonstration where you guys are going to follow along with me as I build an HTML website, a very basic one. After we have a okay looking HTML website, we're going to switch back to the slides and learn about CSS, or cascading style sheets. After that, we'll have another demonstration where you guys will add style to your website, kind of just following along what I'm doing. And then for the rest of the time, it's pretty much going to be closing thoughts and Q&A. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be playing around with the website, and I kind of want everyone to kind of play around with their creations, and we'll send some screenshots to the Discord. I want to see what you guys are able to create. So before we get started, a little bit about CougarCS. We're the largest computer science organization at the University of Houston. Our mission is to transition students into professionals. Here, we do a lot of events like these. We have a tutoring program on Discord, and we have a lot of other offerings that are meant to kind of help you guys along your academic journey. Look at our upcoming events. Tomorrow we have a campus tour at HCSS. This is a technology company out in Sugar Land. They have a really cool campus, and this is a cool opportunity between CougarCS and MISO. The RSVP might still be open. I would check the CougarCS announcements. They said they're going to close it by end of day. I would, if you guys are interested in going, I would RSVP as soon as possible. But it'll be like a field trip. We're gonna carpool and drive out there, so it'll be a lot of fun. Next week we have an information session with FireEye. They're a cybersecurity company. They actually just got acquired by McAfee Enterprise, so that's a pretty big acquisition. And they'll be with us next week. Come and network with these professionals and learn about the company and their job offerings. Next week we also have a Halloween social. This is going to be a big collaboration between CougarCS, Women in Cybersecurity, CS Girls, Cougarettes, and Code Cougs. It's going to be a fun social. Come dress up, bring your friends. It's free. There's going to be good food and good times. So come hang out with us. And then the week after that, we have the second part of the Full Stack Developer Bootcamp. We already covered what that's going to cover. And then that same week, we also have our CougarCS elections info session. We're going to start opening up our I'll come dress up as a student. Okay, yeah, man, that's a great idea. We're gonna open up our officer elections. So anyone who's interested in joining the team, we're gonna be having an information session. It'll be an event where you can meet with the officers and learn about the positions that we'll have open. Okay, so before we hop into things, just the things that you'll need to install. You guys should have a chance to download these already, but if not, I would just quickly jot this down. I recommend downloading Visual Studio Code. And then I'll be using Google Chrome today. So I'll be using some of the tools. I recommend you guys stick with these, but you're welcome to use your own things that meet these requirements. Okay, so that said, let's hop into things. So FSD 101, Introduction to Full Stack Development. So FSD refers to the development of the front end, back end, and other portions of an application. Modern applications leverage several technologies, and that all come together to deliver a solution. The collection of these technologies is what's considered the application stack. It doesn't just include the front end, back end, and other portions, but that's just kind of a vague idea. Taking a look at front end. Front end is client side. This is something that you guys have all used. This is the side that the user interacts with. The most common examples you might think of are a website or a mobile application, but a front end is a very abstract term that applies to anything that is user facing. So also a command line interface. Any of you guys who have written a program that asks the user, please input a number, please type in something in the keyboard and hit enter. That's a front end. That's a very rudimentary front end. Typical languages when it comes to web development is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. There are other options, but these are the most common when it comes to web development. I'll look at on the other side of things, backend. This is server side. The backend facilitates application functionality. It has all the code and all the things that you wouldn't want to do on the front end. I'm going to come back and explain what I mean by that in a moment. We're going to dive deeper into this in part 2, but backend, there's a lot when it comes to it, but at a high level, typically they're written in JavaScript, Python, PHP, Ruby, but there's a lot of options when it comes to backend. Now here, we have an example of a really, really basic application diagram or like application stack. This is a 3-stack app. We have a front end, a back end, and a database. The front end is like the user side. It's basically like where the information is presented, and it also has controls for the user to interact with the software. The back end is separate from the front end. It's like a totally different code base, and the back end has like all the functionality that's related to the application. The things that make the application work. Let's say in this database, we have a database in our stack also. The backend is what's going to have all the code and all that kind of bulky code and server side logic that's required in order to access the database, make changes to the database and everything there. And the backend, what it does is it basically simplifies all that like work when interacting with the database and exposes a really simple interface that the front end can basically think about as like controls and like little knobs that the front end can use to easily get the information that it needs without having to do a whole lot of logic and information. Some of you guys might be wondering, why can't the front end just directly access the database? Well, that could work. That's totally acceptable. A big concept when it comes to full stack development is the idea of encapsulation and like the principle of single responsibility services, right? Or single responsibility modules. The front end has the only responsibility of the front end is to be lightweight, present the content of the website, and give a very easy to use control for the user to interact with. The backend, its sole responsibility is to simplify all the logic that goes with working with the database and anything else any other requirements that we have that we wouldn't want to do in the front end. In the backend, we can also like store our secrets. Like to access a database, you can't just not just anyone can go up to the database and say, hey, I want to like make some changes here. The backend has to have like a username or password or other secrets that it can use to access the database. We could put this in the front end, but that's kind of a security risk when you have those things lying around, even if you store it in the environment. So the backend is a fully separate application hosted in a different location that isn't exposed to the user. Only the front end knows how to access it. And with this basic diagram, you kind of encapsulate the different functionalities. I just want to say again, this is a very, very simplified diagram. Usually you would include like dependencies, the other things that you would use, like the other aspects of your stack. For example, like in the front end, if it's built in React, you might have like it's a React application that's built on Node and that's deployed on something. So these diagrams can go a lot harder, but that's more for part 2. Now I know this is a lot of theory, but if you're not, guys, we're gonna hop into actual code and real like in your hands dirty. So FSD 102, the building blocks of the web, HTML. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is a markup language that dictates the structure of a web page. I very specifically use the word markup language because it's not a programming language. On the right, you can kind of see an example of HTML. A traditional programming language or scripting language has like if statements, like logic. It has like a flow of execution. But HTML, on the other hand, is a markup language. You're just marking up elements that exist and that'll be rendered on a web page. Here we have a body and then we have a header tag and we say hello world. And that's rendered here. HTML is comprised of tags and attributes. So a tag is used to mark up the start of an HTML element, and they're usually enclosed in angle brackets. So that's these little chevrons right here. Basically, it'll comprise of an open tag and the name of the tag inside of the angle brackets, and then a close tag. And the close tag will usually feature a / before the tag name. Inside of the tags is where you put the content of the HTML element. There are many different types of tags. Not every tag is going to have an open and close. For example, this image only has a single tag, and there's a lot of exceptions. Okay, so attributes. Attributes are additional pieces of information that are contained inside of an HTML tag. These are placed inside of the opening tag. Basically, it specifies more information that the HTML tag would operate. Here we have an anchor tag, and we're specifying a destination address of link.com and click me. When you render this on a web page, it would be click me, and it'd be like blue text with an underline. And when you click it, oops, it'll navigate to that web page. And then here's another image tag, and we're specifying the source, like where to pull the image that you're rendering, example.png. All right, so let's take a look at the basic page structure of an HTML document. Every HTML file should feature the following 4 tags. It should first start with a doc type HTML. We're specifying what the document is, or what the code the document's going to be in. Second is an HTML tag. This is going to basically contain all the HTML code of your document. And then a head and a body. In the head is where you put all your metadata and like information for the compute engine to understand. It's not displayed to the user. This is where you specify the title of the web page, the title that appears on the tab of the bar, or metadata like the description of the website. So when you Google it, it's that paragraph that pops up underneath. It's where you put like information for the machine to use. The body is where you actually put your HTML code, or the stuff that's actually presented to the user. And that's going to host all the content of the page. Now, there's a ton of HTML tags, and it's definitely not worth hopping into each and every one of them. One thing to note is that most HTML tags are semantic. So what I mean by that is they don't contribute more functionality. Like you don't get more functionality or specific behavior by using them, but instead it's just a different name to give semantic meaning to like the context of the content that's there. So think about it from the perspective of a search engine optimization, or a device that has to understand your code. It doesn't understand if you just have a bunch of generic tags. It doesn't really understand what's going on. But saying something like putting all the things that's related to the header in the header section, having a footer for all your footer content. The main content is in this main tag of the website. It helps the search engine better understand like what's going on your web page. So, the user doesn't read your HTML code. It's purely for conceptual understanding for web readers, and it also improves code organization and helps you better like program and understand your code. Before we hop into the demonstration, I just want to cover some basic HTML codes. Some basic HTML tags. To start, generics. These are your bread and butter, the ones you'll use most often. Div, the humble div, this just means division. It has the same meaning as every single other tag, like in this group. They're all convey like no functionality, but what it is just like your standard div. Section is another generic tag. It's kind of like grouping divs. If you want to create a group of objects, you might wrap it in a section so that when you're looking at your code, you understand, this is a block of functionality, and maybe you have a separate block somewhere else. For page organization, header, main, footer, nav is like navigator. Like if you've ever been on a website and there's like a bunch of sublinks to go to, those are usually placed in a nav tag, like on the header. You don't need to use these named tags, but it's good for SEO and semantics. It's just good for clean code. For text, there's the header tags. We kind of already saw this one. For header, you can do H1, H2, H3. With each like bigger number, it decreases in significance. So H1 is going to be the biggest, and H3 is going to be a lot smaller. P, it means paragraph. So like simple paragraph text. Image, we already saw this one. You can like place an image on the web page. Anchor, this is a super useful tag. You can use it to link other website or link other pages or something like that. There's a lot of other functionality for it too. The break tag, BR, this is to break into a new line. It's not great practice to use this, but it is nice to have it's nice to have on your tool set. Another few useful HTML elements are the list. A list, basically, let's say you have like a list of items, like a bullet list or a numbered list. You need to wrap the list items inside of a group, and that you have two options for that. You have unordered list, so UL. This is going to be bullet points and stuff. And then you have ordered list, OL. And this is going to be like 1, 2, 3. Then inside of this group, you'd actually have your list items. And those would be denoted with an LI, so list item. And then the table. Table is another really great HTML element. Lets you create like a nice organized like grid of data. So first you need to wrap your entire table element inside of this table tag. Then you can have a row. For each row inside of that table, you specify a TR. And then inside of each row, you can either put a TH or a TD. TH stands for table header. It's going to be like bold text, or it's going to be like stand out from like the regular one. And then TD is table data. So just like the empty cell, like the cells of the grid. Using these together will let you create a cool looking table on the fly. And they also, like at face value, that's great for tables. There's also a lot of advanced uses of table. It's great for making a grid really quickly. It's great for organizing like a page of content. So yeah, they're definitely it's a very powerful data HTML tag. Cool. So let's go ahead and hop into the first demonstration. So I would like for everyone to follow along with me. I'm going to go ahead and go to my desktop, and I'm going to create an empty folder named demo. Oops. Yeah, let me, I know why it's saying that. Okay. Let me name this demo. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. It's a wallpaper engine. You can get it on Steam. It's like $3. And there's like a whole bunch of options too. Lively wallpaper. Oh gosh, I didn't even know there was other ones. So I got this demo folder. I'm gonna go ahead and open up VS Code, and I'm gonna open this folder in Visual Studio Code. Open folder and desktop demo 1. Cool. All right. So now I'm gonna go ahead and create an HTML file. I'm gonna name this demo1.html. All right, now I have my HTML file. How's everyone doing? I'm gonna try and go slow. Let me know if I'm going. Is everyone kind of like up to where I'm at? Okay, I see one thumbs up. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna try to go slow throughout. Oh, you're gonna get me a Red Bull? Thanks, man. Do you see the stash behind me? I don't know if you see that. We should get CougarCS sponsored by Red Bull. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set up all my boilerplate HTML code. I'm gonna type this out manually, but if you're using VS Code, it should like auto-populate super quickly. So yeah, there we go. I got my HTML tag. I got my doc type HTML. Next, I'm gonna make my empty HTML tag. And then inside of here, I'm going to set up 2 tags. Can anyone tell me what tags I should create in here? Just drop it in the chat or unmute yourself.
The head one.
Yeah, head. Perfect. What else? Head and body. Perfect. All right,
Title,
nice.
body.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Now we have our boilerplate HTML code out of the way. Let me go ahead and set up a title for this web page. So I'm putting this in the head. This isn't going to be rendered on the screen itself. And here I'm going to say the title of my website as my website. This was going to pop up like on the tab when I open it in the browser. There we go. Now in the body, I'm going to go ahead and just put a header 1 tag, and I'm going to say hello world. And I'm going to put a P tag, like a paragraph tag, and I'm just going to put my name. My name is Nykolas. Now, at the end of this workshop, I would really love to see what you guys make. So feel free to like deviate, like in terms of content, and like feel free to play around if I'm going too slow. Like play around, add some more stuff. I want to like send screenshots of what you guys make in the Discord when we get to the end. Cool. So yeah, I got my header tag, and I got my name is Nykolas. Give me 1 second. Okay. Now, next, I'm gonna go ahead and open this up in Google Chrome. Let's actually see this baby run. Is there a sign-in link? Yes, there is a sign-in link. Let me grab that. All right, bet. Yeah, so here is our demo file. I'm going to right click this over here and I'm going to say reveal in File Explorer. If you're not using Windows, there's definitely like an equivalent button on Mac, for revealing it in your File Explorer. But I'm just doing that so I can double click this and bam, I have it in my browser now. I'm going to put these side by side. Nice. Oops. There we go. Yeah, and now I have my code rendered on the screen. Very cool. How's everyone doing? Is everyone able to get this open on the browser? If the double click doesn't automatically open in your browser, just you can just like drag it in, kind of like that. Yeah, you just got to open it up in your Chrome. But yeah, how's everyone doing right now? Got some? You guys able to open up an HTML doc? See your code come to life?
So I'm doing it on my computer. So I'm still trying to figure out how to start it on my Chrome. So it'll probably take me a second to figure that out.
Oh, it's not like opening in Chrome?
Yeah, no, I don't have it on my browser, so I'm doing Visual Code on the app itself.
Yeah. So yeah, you have it open on Visual Code, and then you can open up like a file explorer or like some sort of like finder if you're on Mac. Go to the folder that it's in, and then you can just see that you just have the HTML file. You can just like drag it into a browser. Like if you drag it into a browser window, it should automatically drop in. You can also like paste the path of the file into the browser. It should work a few different ways. Oh yeah, make sure you save the file. It's gonna be it won't render anything if you don't save it first. Cool. All right, I'm gonna step forward. All right, next, let's go ahead and make a list inside of the body. So I'm gonna do an unordered list, UL. I'm gonna put a few list items in here. I'm just gonna be generic. Well, there we go. Save that. And let's go ahead and refresh. Very cool. Now I got my list. Does anyone know what I got to do if I want to get these like numbered? Or like what tag I should use if I want to get this list numbered?
Hetch.
Oh well, hell yeah. Nice. Or what is it? Ali, you win first on that one. Cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and reload that. And yeah, perfect. We got a numbered list. Very cool. Next, let's go ahead and add a table to this page. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make my table tags. And then I am going to, you prefer React already? Yeah. So yeah, React is a great framework. It's important to how to quickly save. If you hit Control S on VS Code, it'll save, and then you can just reload on the page. So React is built on HTML, or is built on HTML CSS, as you guys are aware. It definitely it has its own syntax called JSX, so it's not true HTML what you're writing, but it looks it's like in its form, but it's compiled into HTML. It's a great framework to learn, but I highly recommend that you guys start with HTML CSS basics. That's going to give you kind of like the introduction into like how the fundamental technology works, and it makes you like very effective when you go into no, on my website I did that using vanilla HTML CSS. I have been meaning to update that to like one of those frameworks, but at the moment it's just plain Jane. You can actually see it. I go to my website and inspect. Like this is just plain Jane HTML CSS. So yeah. It's pretty powerful. Like you can do a lot. Like you guys will see how much this will turn around. It's pretty cool. But yeah, Control S is how you quickly save. How do you know to use when React or not? That's a great question. Let me ask me that towards the end of the workshop. I have I can go. I have a longer answer for that. So let's go ahead and make a table. I'm gonna make my table. I'm gonna set up. Let's have 3 rows on this table. So I have TR, so table row. I'm saying table row 3 times. Now inside of my first row, I want some headers. So I'm going to use TH, table header. I'm going to say column 1. I'll copy that, and then column 2. Let's reload, and there we go. Nice. Now we have our 2 columns. Let's go ahead and add some more data to here. I'm going to say TD, and I'll put row 1, column 1. Copy that. Row 1, column 2. copy these two and put in here, row 2, column 2. There we go. I'll reload, and we have a nice populated table. Very cool. All right, now next, how do I copy lines like that? Oh, you want to see the pro tricks? So if you're on a line in VS Code and you don't have anything selected, if you hit Control C, it'll select the line. So I hit Control C right now, and then I hit Control V, and then it pastes the line that I'm on, like below it. So it's pretty convenient. Yeah, VS Code is great. All right. How's everyone doing? We got like a table, we got a list down. Am I going too fast, too slow? So let me get some feedback. More VS Code shortcuts. Control C and Control V. V for paste. I'll actually write that. CV, yeah. All right. Wait, what CA? What's that mean, Turin? Snippets are good. Yeah. I'll drop more tricks as I'm using them. Dude, honestly, I should VS Code shortcuts will change your life. Yeah, Control S to save. I'll just like put that up here. I'll hit Control plus slash to make a comment. Control plus S to save, and then yeah. I'm just writing this while you guys are catching up. While people are catching up, and then Control C, Control V, copy paste. That's the classic. Cool. So let's go ahead, and I feel like this webpage is definitely looking very bare. Let's add a little bit of life on here. Let's add an image to the bottom of the page. So first thing I'm going to do is let me go ahead and add an image to my project. I don't know if you guys have any images lying around. If not, you can just go and download one like from the internet. But just go ahead and like drop an image in your file in your folder, and then name it something that's easy to type out. Like if it's like a crazy 64 letter name, you're not gonna have a fun time. Yeah, those of you who are on the Discord might recognize this image. So I added an image to my project. I'm gonna go ahead and say image. I'm gonna make an image tag. I'm gonna specify an attribute, the source attribute, and I'm gonna say the source is nom.gif. And then I'm going to close that image tag. Notice this is only a single tag. There isn't like a separate tag here. Yeah. I have an attribute here, and I'm specifying the source. And then here I put the file path, or like the relative file path to this file. Because it's in the same folder, I can just put it like this. But if it was inside of a folder, I would have to like, I'd have to describe like what folder it's in. If I had to go backwards, if it's like on my desktop, I could say like separate sep or something. I don't know. Like, but it's in the same file, so in the same folder, I can drop it like that. Let's go ahead and reload. There we go. Now this website is starting to have a little bit of flair. Let me go ahead and like add this like 6 times. All right. This is looking good. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna give everyone a second actually to get a picture added to their website.
Hey, how do you add a picture if you're using the normal computer one?
Sorry, say it again.
So I'm using VS Code in just the app itself. How do I add the image here, or how do I just drop it in the folder?
So you would pretty much like I would open up the folder in like a file explorer like this, and then like here's my project folder.
It was okay. I found it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can drag it in. Ali Zane, why is there 2 GIFs on one line? Any reasoning for that position? I think it's because it wouldn't fit. Like, yeah, I think you can see right here. See it? So it's like there's like a little bit of padding. In fact, let's take a look. Like you can actually see what's going on here. So if I inspect the page and I open this up, I can see what every element looks like. So this is on Google Chrome. This is Google Chrome Developer Tool. Super powerful tool, lets you analyze what's going on. So I'm going to click on an image. We can see here that the image fits the content perfectly, but for some reason there's like this little spacing around it. I don't know why it's spacing it out like that. I don't know where that's coming from, because I don't see anything on the style here. But yeah, this will let you kind of like see exactly what's going on your web page. Is it changed automatically to a mobile device? Oh, yeah. You have this thing highlighted. If you're on Google Chrome and you see this mobile view, just click on this button right here. It like these Chrome tools are super powerful, by the way, as you guys can see. It lets you really like demo what your website like. How would my website look on an iPhone right now if I was like on an iPhone 10 and I can like interact with it like that? But yeah, okay. So I have some images added to my webpage. I'm feeling like this is looking really snazzy right now. Like I'm digging this look. Let's go ahead and add like a second page title. So I'm gonna make a H2 right here. It's gonna be like the second title of the page. I'm gonna say page section 2. I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna make another one at the top, like maybe like right here. Put this like page section 1. Actually, I'm gonna put it hello world. There we go. Page section 1. I reload the page and now I have these two nice looking page sections. Nice. I'm gonna go to my bottom page section and I'm going to make a p tag, and let's just put some like random text here. If you're on VS Code, you can type in lorem, like lorem ipsum. If you type it and hit tab, it'll automatically like fill it out for you. It'll give you like a nice little blurb of generic text, which we got here now. So yeah, I'm gonna take a brief pause here really quick. How are people doing? Where is anyone feeling like I'm moving very quickly? Okay, Ali, you're just killing it, man. Let's see how everyone else is doing. Your picture's gigantic. Does the number after H dictate size? Yes, that's true. That is correct. So H1 is the most significant, and then each one after that gets less and less significant. So, if I put an H3 tag here, you'll see that it looks like much smaller. Like, see, then H4, or like if I do H6, like they keep getting smaller and smaller. You're probably wondering who would use this, like, and why. Is there a code to resize the image? Yes, there is, but we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that in a moment. Cool. So do people have web images on their page? Like their images they're able to get something, kind of like this. Like they have some of this demo out right now. There's like 2 people that are giving me acknowledgement. I'm worried like 98% of you guys are just like, oh my God, he's got to slow down. Give me some engagement, guys.
Yeah, it took me a time to like.
Nah, you were going. It was a little fast. It was a little fast.
Right,
but the shortcuts were helping me.
All right, good stuff. Okay, I'm gonna wait just one more second. But with this, we're getting pretty close to the end of the HTML demo. We'll hop into the CSS demo, and you guys will learn some other stuff. We'll get into the VS Tech thing is the big thing. VS Tech. Well, it's more important than the content of the workshop. It's just like these shortcuts. Okay, so right now I have this very crisp looking web page. I got like these 2 sections, but people nowadays, like you can't expect people to scroll on your website. That's a lot of work. You have to anticipate that the user doesn't want to work very hard on your website. So let's make things a little bit easier for them. What I want to do is I want to have like 2 buttons up here that when they click, it'll automatically jump them down to the section. Like we'll have like a little button for each section. So up here, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll just do it in a list for the hell of it. I'll do an unordered list, and I'll have 2 items. I'm gonna have page section 1 and page section 2. All right. Let me go ahead and like break these open. So now I have kind of like a list of all the items that are going to be on this page, and I want to like link them below. So what I can use is an anchor tag, and I can wrap the title in an anchor tag, and then I can specify basically a destination that if you click on this, it'll take you somewhere. So actually, let me get this with the anchor tag on both of them. So in this anchor tag, I can specify an attribute. Inside of it, I'm going to say href. Let me actually zoom in too. I'm going to say href is equal to, and I can specify a destination. Now, this could be anything. Like if I say https:// google.com, and I save that. Now when I click this, it's going to take me to Google. So I can like basically set up a link to another location. What do we got here? Let me see. Is that a plane? Oh, is the image like super huge? Like, nice. Oh, you got the, is this Angular? All right. All right. So the anchor tag. I'm going to go ahead and link it to a destination on the web page. So this is cool for like linking outside of the website, but we want to point something in the web page itself. So let me go ahead and how can I point it at a specific element on this page? So I can achieve this effect by basically making an ID on an element and then just basically pointing my anchor at that ID in the web page. So on this first header, I'm going to go ahead and put the ID. I'm going to say ID is equal to sect1. And here I have an ID attribute and I'm specifying the value section1. Now let me scroll down to the bottom and I'm going to put the same thing on the second on page section 2. And I'm going to say, section 2. Let's go ahead and reload this. So now these two elements are ID'd. Now inside of the anchor tag, I can now link them directly by saying href. I'll say hashtag or pound, and then I'll type in the name of the ID. So sect1. So this pound syntax basically denotes that you're going to write an ID. I'm going to do the same href on the second one, on the second anchor. And I'm going to specify this one to section 2. Now let's go ahead and reload this. And now when I click this, it'll automatically bring me down to that section of the page that I want to be in. Now, this is pretty much it for the HTML demo. I'd say the only thing that you might want to do in addition is, let's semantically organize our code. So first, let's make a header tag. I'm going to put this h1, and I'm also going to put this like unordered list all up in the header. This unordered list is a nav. Like this is a navigator. We made a navigation for our website. So I'm going to put a nav tag. And I'm going to put this untitled list inside of there. And there we go. I'll save that, reload the page. You'll see there's no difference to how the page looks. But if we hop into things, this is more semantically correct. We could also do like a main tag and put everything inside of a main. But we don't need to do that right now. So there we go. There is the HTML demo. I'm going to wait one more second. And let's also send this code out in the chat. But so how's everyone doing? Does everyone kind of have like their own little demo one right now, or their own little thingy? I sent mine in the chat of the nav tag. So the nav tag, it's a semantic tag, so it doesn't really serve a purpose, but we're organizing that this is our navigator. So this is our navigation. This is where we put our navigation. If we want to take this a step further, we could also make a main tag. This is going to be the main content of the website. And we can put everything else we have inside of that main tag. And bam, and I reload. Again, there's no difference to the actual web page. I mean, this doesn't serve any purpose, but semantically, like it's just semantically now when I'm understanding the web page, like when a bot has to read our code, it knows that this is just the header. Like this isn't actually like the most relevant content on the web page. It's actually in the main area is where the most relevant stuff is. Okay, so let's go ahead and I think that's this is good for the HTML demo. I sent out my version of the code in the chat if you guys want to pull that up if you weren't able to fully follow along. But let's go ahead and move on to the second part of this workshop. Let me go back to my slides. There we go. Okay, so part 2, FSD 103. Define the look and feel of a web page using CSS. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It's a styling language that dictates the layout and design of a web page. It consists of a selector and a map of style attributes. On the right, we have an example of a CSS file. And then we have that they have a web page that's using that CSS file up here. The first thing we have is a selector. We're saying body. So basically, I'm selecting the body HTML tag. And then I'm setting the body's background color to light blue. And you can see that up here. Next, I'm selecting the funny class. Like there's a class named funny, and I'm selecting it here. And for this class, for every element with this class, I'm basically saying the color is going to be green, width is going to be fit the content, and then I'm going to set the border. I'm going to put a border around it, draw a little border around it like this. And you can just assume that this is like an H1 tag that has the funny class on it. So let's take a look at how we can actually incorporate CSS into our project. There's three ways. The first way is to add the CSS directly to the HTML element that you wish to style. We have an example here. So we have a div element, and I'm setting the color of the text to red. So for this div element and this div element only, it's going to set the color of that to red. This is the worst way that you can incorporate CSS in your project. When you're writing CSS, try to empathize with the computer that has to interpret your code. If you have a bunch of like individual rule sets for particular elements, it becomes a big hassle to render, and it doesn't scale. Like as you keep building out your web page and you keep having more of this, it becomes very difficult to manage and not very performant. The second way to do it is internal, is through was with an internal CSS tag. So basically, in the head, so remember the head is where we keep all our metadata. In the head, you have a style tag, and inside that style tag, you can just write the CSS for the document. In terms of performance, this is about as good as it gets, so there isn't any performance negatives here. But the problem that's introduced is scaling, like as you keep building out your project. Imagine you have a 3-page website. You probably want, as the user kind of moves through the web pages, for all the pages to have the same look and feel and like same design language. So it doesn't make sense that each web page would have its own, style sheets, its own set of rules for the how the website should look. So that brings us to the very best way to use CSS, which is with an external separate CSS file. And then what you do is you link that CSS file into your project. Again, we have this in the head because the head is where we keep metadata and stuff relevant to the computer. And instead of having a style tag, we have a link tag, and we set the link destination. We set the link point. We point it at the style sheet that we have in our project. Another required attribute for this link is the rel, which stands for relationship, and the style sheet is a style sheet for the project. So you would need to specify that. Okay, so let's talk about CSS selectors. There's a bunch of different categories for CSS selectors. For this workshop, we're only going to look at the simple selectors, but I'm just going to briefly step through these. For simple selectors, there's like selecting by tag, selecting by ID. For combinator selectors, these are selectors that are based on a relationship. Here we say select every p tag that is inside of a div, and it doesn't matter how deep it is inside of that div. If it's a p tag and there's a div tag that it's wrapped in and at some level, then that p tag will be selected and styles will be applied to it. And that's we're saying that's relationship. Another one is you could do select only the p tags that are direct descendant of divs. And it would work like that. So a bunch of different options here. There's also pseudo class selectors, and these are based on the state of a tag. So let's say we have a div element, like let's say we wrap this text right here in a div. When I hover over that, let's say when I hover over it, I want it to highlight yellow. What I could have here is I could say div hover. When it's hovered over, set the background color to yellow, and then when there isn't any hover on it, the background color is default. So there's no hover, there's no like highlight on it, for example. There's also pseudo element selectors and attribute selectors, but those get a little more complicated. You guys, I definitely encourage you to look this up in your own time because there's a lot of power here, but for our purposes, we only need to know some of the basics. Onto simple selectors. So there's 3 different types of simple selectors, approximately speaking. There's one just selecting by tag. This will let you select, this is the simplest one. So I say div, this is going to select all the div elements. I can say body, h1, anything that's a tag, I could select this way. They're select by ID. IDs are really useful. We saw the ID used in the first part of this demo. And the ID basically lets you assign a value, like a unique ID to an HTML element. One thing to note here is they should be unique. And I use the word, you guys probably wondering why I keep using the word should and not need or like must. It's because HTML is like very like, you're not gonna, it's gonna work. The code will still run, but you're gonna get funky behavior. So it's important to follow as it's written, as you should use it, right? So IDs should be unique. And when you're referencing them in your CSS, you're gonna reference it with a hashtag prefix to grab it. This is gonna apply this style, like so we have this div with the unique ID attribute, and we're setting it to unique section. We're gonna apply these styles to that div. It's not gonna be red like this other one specifies. It's gonna take the ID style on top, like at the highest priority. Cool. And then lastly, there's class. So classes don't have to be unique. Classes are specified the same way as an ID on an HTML element. So we say class, and then we put you say the attribute and the value here. And then you can reuse the same classes several times. Classes are going to be your bread and butter selector. Super convenient. I'd say you're going to use these the most pervasively. They're the best way to organize your code. There were no IDs or classes on the second two divs. Then, so okay. Ryan asks, if there were no IDs or no classes on the second two divs, would the CSS apply to all three? So yeah, if this ID wasn't here and this class wasn't here, then the div level, this would apply. But here's an example, right? We have this comment card. What color do you guys think the text of this comment card is going to be? It's a div, and we're specifying that the divs are going to have a red color, but it also has the class of comment card. And this comment card specifies that the background color is white, and the border is going to have this like 1px border around the edges. So I kind of want to take let's take a vote really quick. Just trying to drop your answer in the chat. Do you guys think it's going to be red from this, or it's going to be black or some other color for whatever reason? All right, we got some options in the chat. So this is controversial. So it looks like people are saying different things. So the way CSS works is there's like a tier of importance, I guess, when you're coming to styling it with an attribute. This is an HTML tag level selector, and we're selecting all HTML tags. So all HTML tags are going to have the red color. An ID and a class, those are higher level. Like these are more important. So it's actually going to use the ID and class styles over the div style, but it's layered. That's another thing to be important, is it's layered. So it's still using both of them together. In the case of the unique section, we're setting the color to blue. So it's a higher up on the layer, and we're overriding a style property that's set on an element lower down. So in this case, it's going to be blue text. But on the bottom case, we're not overriding the color of the text. So it's actually still going to be red text on this element here, because we don't like specify a different element. So yeah, just keep in mind, it's kind of like tiered. We're not going to go too deep into this for this workshop, but there's something that's good to know. IDs take precedence over classes, which take precedence over tag level. Yes, we will post this on our YouTube. All right, let's take a look at CSS lengths. There's two types of lengths in CSS. There's absolute and relative. On the absolute side, there's only one that's really important, which is the pixel. I don't think you'll ever use any of these other ones. But for the pixel, you guys know what a pixel is. It's it's the smallest unit of measurement on your screen. Absolute lengths, the times that you'll use these is if you know what you want the size of your element to be, or you want to lock your element at a certain size. For fonts, it's definitely like good to put your fonts in pixels, like an absolute unit. Like for example, I wouldn't want my font to scale automatically with the size of my screen, for example. I think that'd be weird. That wouldn't be very functional. Now let's take a look at relative units. You're going to use relative units a ton. When relative units is what facilitates responsive web design. What I mean by responsive is, you're building a website that's going to work on your phone, that's going to work on your PC, right? You have a big screen and you have a small screen, and you want to build your elements responsively, so they kind of resize based on the viewport or like your view window. There's only a few of these that are relevant. Starting with the EM. The EM is basically, it's relative to the font size of the current element. So if I say 1 EM and the font size of my current element is 16, that means it's going to be 16 pixels. If I say 1.5 EM, that'll be 24 pixels. It's going to be 1.5 times 16. EM is a really cool unit, and it's very popular, but it's very much overshadowed by the much better one, REM. And the only difference between EM and REM is EM is relative to the current element. REM is relative to the root element of your project. So the reason why REM is more popular is it becomes a very difficult web of dependencies. And like if you're using EMs like relative to the current element, you're gonna have a lot of factors depending on where you place that. On the other hand, an REM is going to be the same anywhere in the project, because you only define your root size one time. Or if you change your root element, everything's going to change based on the root. EM becomes a little bit more difficult to manage. The next cool relative unit is the percent. The percent will be relative to the enclosing elements. So let's say I have a div that's 500 pixels wide, and I have a div inside of that, and I set the width of that div to 50%. My parent div is 500 pixels. This div is going to be 50 pixels. It's going to be 250 pixels because it's 50% of that parent div. It's the same for the height. If my height is 300 and I say the height is 50%, then it's going to be 150 because it's a percentage of the height. And now the last two important units to keep in mind are VW and VH. So VW is basically a percent of your view width. So you have your browser right here. I'm just gonna So you have your browser right here. The view width is going to be from this edge to this edge, and the view height is going to be from up here to down here. So 50 view width would be like right here. This would be like half the screen. You know, one view width would be like just this like tiny little sliver like on the edge, 1% of that. That's another pretty good unit to keep in mind. And then VH is the same thing, but for height. All right, so that's it for units. Another thing to talk about is color values. There's a lot of different ways to represent color in CSS. In today's workshop, I'm mainly going to be using the cross-browser color names because those are really convenient. But you can do hexadecimal, RGB, RGBA, HSL, HSLA. The only difference with what this A means is it stands for alpha, and it lets you specify the transparency or like the opacity of your element. An alpha of 1 would mean completely opaque. You can see it perfectly. An alpha of 10% would mean like basically invisible. You can see right through it. And it's cool for like making really pretty websites. Like some basic styling tricks can make make something look really flashy and cool. Okay. Another important thing to discuss when talking about CSS is CSS Display, the display attribute. The display attribute, here are the 4 most popular display attribute values. There are more, but these are the ones that are like pretty much, these are the most relevant. There's display block. This is the default for many elements like div, p, section. Like by default, they're a block element. And what a block does, it'll by default take up as much width as possible. And the height will be determined by the content inside of it. So it'll only go as far down as the content that you set up. This is the default behavior of any div. Even if you like alter the width and height, what's nice about the block element is that you can alter width and height. And for that reason, it's used for structure. Like when you're structuring your website, you generally have like the overall structures as display block, because these are like your building blocks, and you can set the width and height specifically. Even when you constrain the width to like right here, these both fit on the same line, right? But by default, the block will not share the horizontal space with another element. So unless you float the elements or do I wouldn't say advanced, but like a level 2 trick, you can put them on the same line, but by default they will not be on the same line. They'll break up into an individual line each. The next most common one is display inline. Inline, basically the HTML element is wrapped tightly, so it's tightly wrapped around the content. So this is just the boxes right here. These elements can be placed side by side. So here I have one. This is one element right here. This is one. This is like one inline element. There's another inline element. Another one right here, and then another one for the italics, right? I have an inline element that's creating the bold, another inline element is creating the italics, and then just one overall that's like holding it, together. These, it has like, because of that, it has like very useful properties when you're doing text and other things. The next is inline block. This combines the properties of both the block and inline display, and lets you, combine things like this. So the standard visual kind of explains it. And then lastly, display none. This pretty much removes the element from the page. It pretty much it's not visible to the page. It doesn't have any effects on like the flow of elements. So like let's say it's like a big element that's very thick. When you set the display to none, it's like that thing was never there. Like everything will resize as if it wasn't there. And here you can see an example of something with display none. Okay, let's move forward. And lastly, before we hop into the demo, the last most important thing to talk about is the CSS Box Model. You might have already caught a glimpse of this on the Chrome DevTools, but we're going to take a look at it again. The Box Model in CSS or in HTML, all elements can be considered as boxes. And these boxes comprise of 4 elements. There's the margin, which is the outermost layer, the border, the padding, and then the content itself. So, we take a look at this example right here. We have a box that has a width of 300 and a height of 300. So that's actually just specifying the size of the content. So that's this inner box right here. So when you're wondering what the true width or like the true height of something is, you actually have to take into account with the padding, the border, and the margin, because all of these add on to the actual true width height of an element. The padding is kind of like the space between that like inner content and like the border itself. So it's that space between them. And then the margin is what's used to space out elements. So it's used like it's on the outside of the element, and it's used to, it's kind of like you kind of control the margin to kind of space things out and control things that way. Right here I have examples of how this is used. Margin, what I'm saying, there's like 4 different ways you can like pass this in. You could say if you provide 4 numbers or like 4 lengths, it's going to be top, right, bottom, left. Otherwise it's top, right, left, bottom. Or otherwise, top bottom RL or like right left. So basically the y margin and the x margin. And then if you only specify one number, it's going to be the margin equal to the entire side. So over here, I'm saying the margin of the top, left, bottom, and right are all set to 20 pixels, and then the padding for top, left, bottom, right is all set to 50. For border, you specify border by width, style, and then color. So here I'm saying the width is 5 pixels. The style is solid. You can also do dashed. You can also do double that. There's a bunch of different styles. You can check out the reference sheet online. And then you say a color, like what the color of that border is. There are other ways to specify border, but if you guys want to look that up, but this is just the most common ones. Padding, and then for width and height, you can just put just the value of that width and height. Okay, so that was a lot of context. Let's go ahead and move into the demo for CSS. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up my project. This is the project that we just made. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to select both of these, and I'm actually gonna copy. I'm gonna make a new file, and I'm gonna call it demo2.html. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy everything that we just made in that first demo and paste it into this one. I recommend doing this just because you guys can see like the difference that adding a little bit of styling can do to your website. It's pretty crazy, like how much significant CSS, the role that CSS plays. So yeah, here's my folder, and let me close that. So we got a question in the chat. What defines the size of the root element? Resolution. I don't understand. Oh, the size of the root element. Yeah. So the size of the root element is basically it's this view window. So from this corner here to this corner down here, or like from right up here to right down there. That's the root. That's like and that's defined by, it's basically the root is equal to 100 VW. The width is equal to 100 VW, and the height is equal to 100 VH. So yeah, that's what defines the size of the root. By default, the size of the font, like the default size of the font is like 16 pixels, I think, by default for most web browsers. Okay, so here I have my second demo file. Let me go ahead and open this second demo file in a browser. For those following, make sure that you open the second demo file and not your first one, because that'll get confusing. And cool, we have our project right here. Let me move this over. Okay. First thing I'm gonna do, let's add some style to this. This is definitely looking a little bland. I'm gonna first add style by doing an inline CSS. So I'm gonna say style. I have my style attribute equals, and then in these quotations, I'm going to specify the style of this attribute. So I'm going to say color is red. I could also do something else. I could say like border is equal to like 1 pixel solid black. I mean, I could do whatever. Like I could do all these on this one line. You just have to separate each attribute by the semicolon. I'll reload this, and cool. Now we got this styled. Very easy. Who can tell me? So this is bad practice. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. Who can tell me what is the better way to add CSS to my project? I guess this the second way, not the best way, but the better way. Wait 1 second. Come on, you guys know. Yeah, external CSS, that's definitely the best way to do it. But just to demonstrate all the different ways, I'm just gonna do it doing internal CSS. So I'm gonna make my style tag right here. And then inside of the style tag, I can specify CSS that is going to be applied to this entire web page. So let's see. I want to make my header here from my header section. I want to, so I reloaded the page. It's currently up to date. For my header section, so that's going to be this area right here. It's going to be like this area, just the top part. I want to set the background color to, let's make it like a slate gray. Cool. All right. Yeah, so yeah, we can see that it basically applied to this header content area. And if you guys go into the Chrome tools and inspect it, you can see exactly what's being, what the header, like the area that the header is wrapped around. Anyway, definitely best not to specify the background color in the header because you're not getting actually the entire page. So yeah, that's how I would specify it in the CSS. Now let me show you guys how to use like a class. So I want to go ahead and assign like a class to this header. Like here, actually, I'm going to go ahead and make a new group I'm just make an empty div in the main, and I'm gonna copy this like section 1, and my name is Nykolas, and then I'm gonna put it inside this div. So now I wrap this all up in a div. On this div, I'm gonna give it a class, and I'm gonna say this class is card. I'm just calling this card class. Okay. Now up here, who can tell me how do I reference? How do I select that class that I just made? What's like the prefix that I should put? Or I guess like can just drop it in the chat or unmute yourself. Period. Yes. Awesome. Cool. All right. Period class, or my bad. Period card. Now I'm selecting the card attribute, and I'm gonna say border is equal to 1px solid black. It's gonna put like a 1 pixel black border around this area. Perfect. I'm not a fan of this slate gray. Let me just get rid of that. I'll say like H1. I'll make the color blue. Make the color purple. Okay. There we go. Nice. Now it's looking a little better. And yeah, now I have this card. All right, cool. So this is some basic CSS. You can see how this card looks. Let's go ahead and pull this out to an external CSS file, because as you guys are saying, like this is not like a good way to do it. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to name it styles.css. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy paste all this code that I wrote over here. And I'm just going to delete this from the file. I'll save that and I'll reload. You can see now we don't have any styles on this web page. Now I need to link this style sheet into my project. So I'm going to say link. Shouldn't you use RGB for color? Yeah, I mean, I could. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to say link. I'm going to say relationship is style sheet. And I'm going to set the source, or my bad, the href to styles.css. And then I can just close this. Actually, I don't need a forward slash or anything. The link is a bit weird because it's just like a single tag. You don't even have like a forward slash here. Now I have this linked in. Let's go ahead and reload our web page, and we can see that the styles have taken effect again because now we're pulling it from this style sheet. All right, cool. So yeah, Jose says, shouldn't you use RGB for the color? You absolutely can. If you're using Visual Studio Code, you can actually hover over, like if you click on this and hover over it, you can actually like select your color really nicely. So it gives you a really cool like thing. I can even specify like and see it turned it into RGB. I can even like specify like the transparency of it. So if I want it to be like kind of transparent, yeah, but that's weird. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, oops. Okay. So yeah, you can use RGB for this. The color box doesn't show up for me. What do you mean? Could you elaborate on that? Yeah, if you could drop some like elaboration in the chat, I can help out a little bit. Yeah, so both of these files are saved. Make sure you save both of these files and reload. The color next to the specific. Oh yeah. Select your thing, and then after that, it's not saved. So you have to hit save it after you do that. All right. Let's go ahead and turn this website into something actually beautiful. So I have this card attribute. Let's do a little bit more with this. So here's our card. First off, I don't like how it's not wrapping the content. I feel like the content's kind of all against the wall. Let's add something to it so that it's not like just up against the wall. Does anyone know what attribute I can use to kind of create a space between the content and the border? That's right, padding. All right. Yeah, Jarella, you get bonus points. All right, so padding. I find that having like a kind of a thinner top bottom padding and a thicker side padding kind of creates like a cool professional looking thing. So I'm gonna say for my top padding, I'm gonna give it 10 pixels, and then my side, I'm gonna give it like 15. Save that and reload. All right, now we got like some organized content. Let's add a shadow to this. Like, actually no, I think it would be cool if like the borders were rounded. Like it would kind of have like a little. So I'll say border radius. And I'll say like 10 pixels. And I'll reload this, and now we got like some cool corner on the borders. I think a shadow would look really cool on here. So I'll say box shadow, and I'll say like 2 pixel, 2 pixel, 2 pixel black, like to specify the color. Reload, and now we got a little shadow here. I think it's a little intense, so I'm gonna go ahead and lower like the alpha on this. And let's reload that. And yeah, okay, this is a good looking shadow. This is a good looking shadow. I think this is a pretty cool looking element. 2p, why 32 pixels? So the box shadow, it's the command for this is, or the arguments for this is like box shadow. This is like X offset, Y offset. So like how much it, and then blur or something, like this is the spread or something. And then this is the color, is like this kind of like the full arguments for that command. So for all of these that I'm writing down, I wouldn't worry too much about like the tags. I'm kind of just trying to give you guys an exposure to like the different tags that exist. But when you're programming CSS, Google's your best friend. You can like immediately pull up a reference sheet and see like a list of all the tags and all the attributes and see what you can do. Yeah, I think this attribute, this element is starting to look a little good. I want to go ahead and apply it to the rest of these. What's convenient is we used classes when we made this, so it's actually, we can just reuse this class. So I created an empty div. Let me go ahead and create a new empty div. I'll give it the class card. And now let me copy paste this a few times. I'm going to need one from my list, one from my table. I'm going to leave the images out. I think the images look fine without a box around them. And then this second section, I'm going to put it in a card too. So I'll need 3 of those. So yeah, 1, 2, 3. Oops. Okay. I'm going to grab my ordered list. I'll put it in the first one. Oops. I'm going to get my table. I'll put it in the second one. And I'm going to get this second section. I'm going to put it in the third one. And I'm going to put my images on top of that second section, actually, because I like the images to be above that so you can scroll. All right. And now let's reload the page. And there we go. Check it out. Now each one of these has its own card styling. But this is looking a little weird, right? Like these are way too jammed together. What attribute can I use to specify the space between the two elements, between the elements? What's a good attribute I can use to kind of like space all of this out, all my cards out? Margin, yes. All right, good job. Awesome. So I'll put margin up here. And let's give it a margin of, I only want the margin to be on the top bottom. I only want it to space the top bottom. So I'm going to say 0, or I'm going to say 1 rem for the top bottom. So 1 rem relative, root, relative to the root size. So this is going to be like 16 pixels probably. And then I'm going to say 0 so for the X margin. I don't want any margin on my sides. I'll reload that, and there we go. So this is a nice top bottom. There's one rem on both, on the top and bottom, and that's being done for each one. So if we actually open up the main and look at our cards, we can actually see the box model like happening live. So check this out. Chrome gives you a really great view of this. And when I hover over this, the orange part is my margin, the green part is my padding, and the blue part is the size of the content. And this is exactly what we'd expect. We set the margin on the sides to be 0, and all that's defined here. And if you actually scroll right here, you can actually see everything laid out perfectly. And remember how I said like 16 is probably like the size of the, yeah. So 16 is 1 rem. We have a 1 pixel border. We have a padding of 10 and 15 on the sides, and then the actual content here. All right, cool. So this is looking good. I don't need this to wrap around the entire page. I feel like that looks a little weird. What I'd really like is if this was like a smaller width and if it was like centered on the page. Let me first make it a smaller width. All of these items, like I want all of these items to be skinnier width. I could put it on the card, but instead let me put it on a container. Like I have like these containers. Like let me create a container that'll hold on to all of these, and then I can just style the container. And instead of having to worry about each one of these individually, I mean, this card element could be used on any web page, right? So I don't want to constrain it to something that's only relevant to one area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a separate element, and I'm going to wrap everything in that element. So in here, I'm going to create a section. And then in this section, I'm going to say class is equal to container. So I'm just going to create a new class right now. Now let's go over and let's go ahead and put all of everything that we have here inside of that new section. There we go. All right. Now I'll reload. Notice no differences here. Nothing's changed because all we did is put it inside a this class doesn't exist yet. Let's go over to my styles. I'm going to create a new style for the container selector. And then here, I'm going to say width is equal to, let's say 700, let's say 600 pixels. I'm going to use an absolute unit. I'll reload. Cool. Now look at that. Now we have our content. It's nice and like, we have everything spaced out. We have it like set at a certain width. Let's go ahead, but let's take a look at this. I'll go ahead and inspect it. I can see that it's set to 568. It's actually setting the container is wrapping it. And for the container, I'm locking the container at 600 pixels. So if we go on the inside, you'll notice that the size of the actual content isn't equal to isn't equal to 600 because it also has to account for the padding, the border, and the margin. So now if we look at this, it doesn't resize well at all. Like if we go on this on an iPhone, for example, I mean everything would be, I don't know, this is weird. What on earth? Let me like look at it on a, yeah. This definitely isn't very pretty looking. So we want to make this we want to make this responsive. We want this so that when the web page gets smaller, like the size is gonna move with it, right? So what I can do here is instead of using an absolute unit, I can instead specify like a relative unit. In this case, I want it to scale to the size of the web page. So what I'm gonna do is you're dropping all the advanced tricks, Josh. Yeah, what he's writing is definitely good to know. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this more beginner level or more beginner level. So what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna set a relative unit. I want this to be the width to be, let's call it, I want it to be 60% of the width of the page. So I'll reload and bam. Now this is 60% of the viewport, which is going from this edge to this edge. And as I get smaller, notice how it gets smaller. As I get bigger, it keeps getting bigger. If I keep going like this, this is still not great. Like I want to define some ranges. Like this is too small. I don't want it to get this small. Like I want to have some like hard stop before it gets too tiny. I also want it to have like a hard length. I don't want it to get too long. So what you can do is you can define min and maxes. So I can say min width is equal to like 250 pixels, and then max width is equal to like 600 pixels. Now I'll save this and reload. And now look, it stops at a height, and I get here, and now it doesn't get any smaller than a certain point. If I keep doing this, it doesn't get any smaller than that. And that lets me create something responsively, and now it adjusts, depending on where I'm at. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get this baby centered. I want this in the middle of the screen. I want everything to be nice and clean. What I can do here is I can set a margin for the left and right side. Basically, I just want the margin to basically automatically calculate what it used to be, so it's equal on this side, equal on this side. Like the margins are going to be equal on both sides, and then the content is in the middle. What I can do is there's a nice little value for this, and I can say margin is equal to auto. I'll reload and save that. And now the margin on the left side is equal to the margin on the right side. And this will be like nice and organized. You guys notice that the header right now isn't actually isn't being centered. Can anyone tell me why the header isn't like in the center of the screen, or like why didn't it move with the container? It's not in the container. Yeah, that's right. So if we go check out the code, I have my main and I have my container here, but my header is up here. It's like in a totally independent area. So cool. This website is starting to look kind of good. Like we got some like style on here. It's looking not bad, not half bad at all. I want to make this like a little wider so my dudes can be in like 2 columns. Let me see about that really quick. Make this like 700. All right, yeah, that's there we go. That's looking good. Yeah, CSS, centering in CSS, that's a question like I still Google to this day, how do I center something? Unfortunately, it's a bit of an advanced trick. Like the best way to do it is a little too advanced, but if you guys stick around to the end of the workshop, I'll be here to answer questions and ask, like, if you guys are trying to make your websites look extra special. So let's set a background color on this website. I kind of want this website to have a little bit more of a pop. So I'm going to say body, my body tag. I'm gonna grab everything that's inside of this body, so pretty much the entire content of the web page, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna set the background color to, let's make it like something cool, aquamarine. No, that's not cool. Let's get like a good color. Make it like a blue, something soft. I recommend soft colors. Like, don't make something that's like intense on the people's eye. Shoot, so that kind of messed up our cards. Let me go ahead and fix my cards. So now I'm going to go to my card and I'm going to say background color is equal to, oops, background color. I'm going to say that's white. I'll reload and cool. Now we got like, now we got like some actual cards of content. Yeah, and here we go. Now we have a nice little website. We got like some nice little content here. I'm gonna put my header in a card. I think like it would look a little bit better if it was inside one of those. Or I mean, I could like separately. I could just like, what is it, like wrap my header. I guess my only issue is that it has like all this extra space here. Well, actually, no. What I could do instead, there's like this little margin. You guys see that? Like this tiny little margin on the sides of things that's kind of making things funky. But yeah, and here we have a nice little CSS website. Let me check. Okay, cool. And here we go, guys. Here is our website. And this is you guys have a nice little CSS website. I kind of want you guys to use this time, like now that you have like this kind of thing laid out, play around a little bit. Play around with the styles and try to make your website you know, a little unique. I kind of want to see what your creations are looking like. If those of you guys who are in our Discord, I'm also going to send the link to the Discord if you guys aren't. Go ahead and like send a screenshot of what you guys got and like if you're feeling kind of proud of what you guys got going on. You drop a little screenshot of your project in one of the chats if you guys want to drop it in like general or something, or yeah. But yeah, how are people doing? I'm kind of curious about the demo. Was it a little too fast paced, or are you guys kind of chugging along, having fun with this?
I mostly caught along, but I'll definitely need like a little bit more time just to figure it out. Especially with
100%.
the CSS part. Especially with the CSS part. Other than that, like I pretty much got it. The only part I was kind of confused in the beginning was the now part when you started adding all the sections in and then adding the new classes. But yeah, I almost got it. I almost got it.
Oh, yeah, right on. Do you want me to like let me know if you want me to like hover over any part of the code?
Oh no, you did a great job. It's just I have to figure it out and see what I have to do.
100%. But yeah, guys, I'd say the rest of this time, I'm probably like another 10, 15 minutes. I'm here to take questions and basically I'm gonna start playing around with the website and just adding random stuff. But the basically what web development looks like is having your screen split screen like this and like making really small changes. Like here, I'm looking at my code. I'm just wondering like what's all this junky white space over here. To kind of diagnose like what's the problem, I can open up my Chrome inspector. This is going to be in the main, and I can see it right here, and I can see how this page is broken up. So there's my card. I know I can expect that. And if we hover over the H2 element, we can see that it has this weird margin like on the top and bottom. I don't really like how that looks. So let me go ahead and just like scratch the margin on this H2 tag. Say margin is 0. I'll reload, and now there we go. Now we got something a little cleaner. All right, awesome. Glad this stuff is making sense. It's really basic. I mean, like with the skills that you guys have right now, you can like seriously build on this and universally kill all margins and padding. Yeah, that's actually what Josh said. That's actually like very common practice. I mean, there's like CSS refresh or like what is it? CSS clear. There's like it's a really common file that people use. What is it? Resets file. Reset CSS. Yeah, like here it is. This is like a common import that people will use. It basically goes through and removes all the default formatting, all the default styling that HTML gives you. Like, as we were building this, like I'll pop back open that first version of the demo. Keep in mind, this is the same website. We didn't change very much besides like added a little bit more organization. But like this is exactly the same HTML code that's being represented, and it's crazy how powerful CSS can be in terms of like how much you can change the website. But as you can see, there's a lot of styling that happens by default with HTML, and it's not very pretty. So if what people will do is they'll have one of these like reset sheets and they'll import them into their project just to clear all the default stuff and yeah, pretty much give you a little reset from all the default styling. Yeah. Yeah, that's like a little simple, like that's a much simpler way to do it for sure than using one of those other sheets. Yeah, I guess like I'm just gonna keep working on my website over here. So you guys, I'm here to answer questions and like let me know if there's any parts that were confusing. And if you guys are like playing around with your websites, I really encourage you to try and make something cool. If you have any questions about how to achieve something that you're not exactly sure how to implement, let me know. I'm here to answer questions and help you guys out.
Do you can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you have any tips of designing a website?
A website design?
No, just designing, just in general.
Well, like just like you mean like kind of planning out how a website should look?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I recommend here actually let me oh yeah. Oh, perfect timing then. Arian, thanks for coming by, man. Really good to see you. So Jorel, am I pronouncing that right? Is it Horel or I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't want to get it wrong. But he asked, how do I want to change the font? So changing the font in CSS is really easy to do that. Of course, a quick Google is what I always recommend, font CSS. And this will give you all the good info. But basically what we can do is I'm going to change it at the root level because I want this to apply to every single element. Body would be just the same, but oh, got him. Never mind. Body is my root. I'm tripping. I haven't used like raw CSS in a while. Oops. So body is my root. Here I'm going to say font size. I'm going to set it equal to 16 pixels. I'm going to set the font family, and I'm going to specify VS Code is great. I mean, look at all these options it gives you, like, easy peasy. Here's if I'm, importing what's called a browser safe font. And those are fonts that are, recognized across all different websites. But if you want to bring in your own font from like an external source, there's this website, Google Fonts, and they let you just import it super easily. I can actually just show, where do you post all the HTML code? So I'll go ahead and post these two files as well in the chat. So this is the most up-to-date demo, the one that I have on my screen right now. For you guys to follow. What I'm going to do is after this workshop, I'm going to upload the recording to YouTube and put all the demo material like together for you guys to use. So yeah, you guys can just build it from there. But for now, I just sent it in the chat. You can download those to recreate what I have going on here. So let me go ahead and import a font from Google Web Fonts. Cool. And then here, I got this nice like little library of all these different cool fonts. Roboto is a very famous, like very common font to use. I can go here and I just want to set, I'll just like select regular. And then there we go. I have this link and I can copy this. Oops. And I can just link this in on my HTML with the rest of my headers, with the rest of my stuff in the head. So I can go here. And right here, what this code is doing is it's letting me like import this font. And then now that I have this downloaded on my computer, I can reference it over here. So I can say font family. I can set it equal to, actually tells me exactly, gives me the code right here to put in the CSS. I just go like that. Boop. And let's reload the web page. And now everything's in Roboto and it looks a lot nicer. Someone asked, how do you style, or how do you design a website? Design planning can take a lot of, design practice. Like the practice of design is an entire field. Josh can tell you like that's an entire can of oysters. But I'd say like a tool that I'd recommend to like plan stuff out is Figma. Figma is a really fantastic website. We use it a ton internally. I use it a lot personally.
to just like plan out how things should look. They let you it's like basically just a freeform editor. Like let me pull it up here. Like here's an example. This is actually when I was planning out how this demo should look. I was kind of like mapping stuff out. But what's really nice about Figma is, I can make a frame. I'm gonna make this for a desktop, just like your standard desktop. And then inside of here, I can actually go and design like how my web page should look. I'll have my header. I'll have like main content. And then, in here, you can actually, really plan out how things should look. I think Figma also, like, there's a way to use it. You can actually export what you make here into code. I don't know how to do that personally, but Figma is a really powerful tool. So if you're interested, I'd look into it. Yeah, first step is do an outline of the website in text. Like yeah, describe it. Yeah, for sure. There's like a lot of steps to, good design planning. Yeah. Like for me, what I did is I have a notebook lying around somewhere, but I'll like draft it out on paper and graph paper. But that was before I learned about Figma. Figma changed my life. I use this a ton, like for so much stuff. You guys like not just website planning. Like website planning is just like one thing. This is the first thing I used it for, but you can do a lot with it. Yeah. Cool. But you guys having fun? Are you guys playing around right now? Like I want to see some of your creations. For those of you guys on our Discord, take a screenshot if you got something cool looking or something you want to share. Drop it in the the second crash course is how to upload a website. Yes, so in the second crash course, we aren't planning to talk about code deployment, but I think that would be actually a really good idea. It's quick and easy. We could like mention. I think I'll add that in. I think that's definitely something that's good to know. Yeah, React is great. React is really great. I use React a lot. For anyone who's like beginning web development, I highly recommend start with the basics, HTML, CSS. When you work with React and other frameworks, you run into a lot. It kind of takes you away from what's like actually happening like at the fundamental level. All these different frameworks compile into HTML, CSS. So, sometimes you can get really funky behavior that you don't know how to diagnose or, fix if you didn't already have skill about like HTML and CSS already. Tarun, which one are you looking for? I can send it again. Here's actually all the demo files. You can even have my Discord picture, GIF. Come on, guys! I want to see some of your creations. Let's draw something in the chat. Also, let me go ahead and stop the recording.